Let me tell you something society doesn't want you to hear. Living alone after 65 isn't the tragedy everyone makes it out to be. I know what they say. I've heard it at the grocery store, seen it in those pitying glances at family gatherings. Oh, she lives by herself now, poor thing. As if your worth somehow diminishes when there isn't another person sharing your bathroom or your morning coffee. Here's the brutal reality nobody talks about. For many of us, living alone for the first time in our lives is terrifying. After decades of organizing our days around husbands, children, aging parents, suddenly it's just us. The silence feels loud, the decisions feel heavy. That first night eating dinner at whatever time you choose, watching whatever you want, not checking if anyone needs anything. It can feel wrong, even selfish. But here's what I've learned from women who've walked this path. That discomfort, it's not weakness. It's the beginning of something powerful. Think about it. Most of us spent 40, 50, maybe 60 years being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. We became experts at reading other people's needs, anticipating their moods, adjusting our lives to fit theirs. Beautiful work, necessary work. But when did you last get to know yourself without all that noise? Living alone strips away the comfortable distractions. Yes, that can be uncomfortable. Yes, it might bring up feelings you've been too busy to notice for decades. And that's exactly where we need to start. Because loneliness and solitude aren't the same thing, though they often get confused. Loneliness is that ache in your chest when you're surrounded by people but feel invisible. It's sitting at Sunday dinner with your grown children, watching them text under the table, and feeling like you're on the outside of their real lives. That's loneliness, and let me be clear, you can experience it just as deeply in a crowded house as in an empty one. Solitude, that's entirely different. Solitude is Saturday morning with your coffee, reading 3 chapters without interruption. It's deciding to have soup for dinner, just soup, because that's what you want. It's the quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts for the first time in decades. Here's the paradox that catches so many of us off guard. Living alone doesn't create loneliness, but it absolutely reveals it. When there's no one else's schedule to hide behind, no one else's needs to stay busy with, you come face to face with feelings you might have been outrunning for years. I spoke with Margaret, 72, who told me her first 6 months alone were brutal. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, and the loneliness felt like it would swallow me whole, she said. But then something shifted. She started asking herself why she felt lonely. Turned out she'd been lonely in her marriage for the last 15 years. She just hadn't had the space to admit it. Or take Patricia, 68, whose adult children kept offering to check on her daily. Sweet, right? Except their concern made her feel like a problem to be managed. When she gently told them she was actually enjoying her solitude, they looked at her like she'd lost her mind. The truth, she was finally finding it. Living alone gives you something precious. The opportunity to address loneliness consciously on your own terms. You can't fix what you can't see, and all that beautiful, sometimes uncomfortable quiet, it makes everything visible. So the question becomes, what do we do with this visibility? How do we transform those empty hours from something we endure into something that actually fills us up? That's where intentional solitude becomes your first real superpower. Intentional solitude isn't about filling every minute, so you don't feel the emptiness. It's about choosing what fills those minutes with such care that the emptiness transforms into spaciousness. Let me show you what I mean. When Dorothy, 70, retired and moved into her own apartment, she panicked at the silence. So she did what most of us do, turned on the television the moment she walked in the door. Background noise, company that asks nothing of you. But after 3 months, she realized she couldn't remember a single show she'd watched. She was anesthetizing herself, not living. So she tried something different. Every morning, before her coffee, she sits in her chair by the window for 10 minutes. Just sits, watches the light change, notices her breathing. Sounds simple, almost stupid, she told me, but those 10 minutes taught me the difference between being alone and being with myself. Now I actually look forward to them. That's intentional solitude. It's mindfulness without the fancy apps or the pressure to do it perfectly. Or consider Ruth, 66, who always wanted to paint but never had time between raising 4 kids and working full-time. Now, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons are sacred. She sets up her watercolors at the kitchen table, and for 2 hours, nothing else exists. Are her paintings museum-worthy? She doesn't care. I'm not painting to be good, she says. I'm painting to be present. Here's what I want you to understand. Intentional solitude isn't a hobby. It's a practice of getting acquainted with who you are when nobody's watching, nobody's needing, nobody's judging. Take yourself on walks where you actually notice things. The way that oak tree has split the sidewalk, how the neighbor's cat always sits in the same sunny spot. Garden with your hands in the dirt. Journal without editing yourself. Cook elaborate meals just for you, because you're worth the effort. These aren't distractions from loneliness. They're invitations into your own company. But here's what nobody tells you about this newfound solitude. This beautiful space you're learning to inhabit. It also makes you aware of just how vulnerable you really are. And that vulnerability, it hits differently at 3 in the morning when you hear a noise you can't identify. Or when you slip in the shower and realize nobody would know for hours, maybe days. Or when your chest feels tight and you wonder, is this heartburn or something worse? Margaret, 68, told me she used to sleep soundly. Then one night she woke to someone trying her door handle. Turned out to be a confused neighbor with dementia. Harmless. But Margaret couldn't shake it. She started keeping her phone on the nightstand, checking locks twice, 3 times. I felt ridiculous, she said. Like a scared child, but I was scared. This is the part nobody wants to talk about. We celebrate independence, but independence at our age comes with a shadow side. Our bones are more fragile. Our balance isn't what it was. We take medications that need monitoring. And if something goes wrong, a fall, a stroke, a sudden illness, there's no one in the next room to notice. Helen, 72, fell reaching for a serving dish on a high shelf, broke her wrist, managed to call her daughter, but the 40 minutes waiting for help felt eternal. That's when it really hit me, she said. I'm alone with this body that's starting to betray me. The physical vulnerability is real, but there's another layer that cuts deeper. The emotional vulnerability of knowing you're your only safety net. No partner to drive you to appointments. No one to bring you soup when you're sick. You are both the caretaker and the one who needs care. And here's the brutal truth. Pretending this vulnerability doesn't exist doesn't make you stronger. It makes you less prepared. The women who thrive alone aren't the ones who deny their vulnerability. They're the ones who look it straight in the eye and ask, okay, what now? What do I need to put in place so I'm not just hoping for the best? Because acknowledging you're vulnerable isn't weakness. It's the foundation of building real resilience. So what does real resilience look like? It starts with something that might feel counterintuitive after we've just claimed our independence, reaching out. Eleanor, 70, keeps a list on her refrigerator. Not a grocery list, a people list. Her neighbor Tom, who checks in every Tuesday. Her friend Patricia from book club. Her niece who calls Sundays. Her doctor's office number. Non-emergency police. The building super. I used to think asking for help meant I'd failed at living alone, she told me. Now I know that having people to ask is successful living alone. Build your network deliberately, not just family. They have their own lives. Find your people. Join a senior center, even if you think you're not old enough for that yet. You are. Try that water aerobics class. Show up to the community garden. Say yes to the neighbor who invites you for coffee. And here's the thing about online communities. They count. Facebook groups for women over 60. Virtual book clubs. Online grief support if you're widowed. Connection at midnight when you can't sleep is still connection. Now your body, you can't pretend it's optional anymore. Walk every single day, even if it's just to the mailbox and back. Do balance exercises while you wait for coffee to brew. Stand on one foot while brushing your teeth. These aren't vanity exercises. They're fall prevention. And falls for us can mean the difference between independence and a nursing home. Mental health matters just as much. Learn what calms your particular anxiety. For some, it's meditation apps. For others, it's calling a friend. Therapy isn't just for crisis. It's maintenance. Many therapists offer sliding scales or work with Medicare. Create your emergency plan tonight. literally tonight. Medical alert system if you can afford it. Some are $30 a month. Can't afford that? Daily check-in calls with a friend. Spare key with a trusted neighbor. List of medications and doctors in your wallet. Ice contacts in your phone. Dorothy, 75, keeps a folder labeled "If something happens to me." Her will, her wishes, her passwords, everything someone would need. It's not morbid, she says. It's loving. It's taking care of future me and whoever has to help her. Because resilience isn't about being invincible. It's about building scaffolding around your vulnerability so when life shakes you, and it will, you don't crumble. But even with the strongest support system, even with perfect health habits and emergency plans, there's one vulnerability we can't exercise away or friend our way out of. The one that keeps many of us up at night, checking our bank accounts, calculating and recalculating. Money. Let me be blunt. Most of us are walking a financial tightrope without a net, and nobody prepared us for this. You worked hard. Maybe you took years off to raise children. Maybe you worked part-time so you could be home when the kids got off the bus. Maybe you earned less than the man sitting next to you doing the exact same job, and you knew it, but you needed that paycheck so you didn't make waves. Now you're 68, 72, 75, and that lifetime of earning 77 cents to his dollar, it didn't just disappear, it compounded. Smaller paychecks meant smaller Social Security. Fewer years in the workforce meant smaller pensions, if you have one at all. Time out for caregiving meant smaller retirement accounts. The numbers are brutal. The average Social Security benefit for women over 65 is about $1,400 a month. Try living on that in today's economy. Rent, utilities, food, medications, insurance. Do the math, it doesn't add up. And we're living longer than men, which sounds like good news until you realize it means our money has to stretch further. 20, maybe 30 years on a fixed income that loses buying power every single year to inflation. Then there's healthcare. Medicare covers some things but not everything. Not dental, not vision, not hearing aids, and those cost thousands. One hospital stay, even with insurance, can wipe out whatever emergency fund you manage to scrape together. Barbara, 71, told me she had $12,000 saved. Felt pretty good about it. Then her car died, her roof started leaking, and she needed a root canal, all in the same year. I went from feeling secure to feeling terrified in 6 months, she said. This is the reality nobody talks about at retirement parties. And if you're divorced, widowed, the statistics get worse. Single women over 65 have the highest poverty rates of any demographic except single mothers. I'm not telling you this to scare you, well, maybe a little, because fear can be useful if it makes you act. The good news, and there is good news, is that you're not powerless here. You're not too old to take control of your financial life. In fact, you might be just experienced enough to do it right. So let's talk about what you can actually do starting tomorrow morning. First, get brutally honest about what's coming in and what's going out. I mean, write it down. Every single expense. That streaming service you barely use, $8. The magazine subscription you forgot about, $12. The coffee you grab twice a week, $32 a month. It adds up, and you can't manage what you don't measure. Margaret, 73, did this exercise and found she was spending $90 a month on things she'd signed up for years ago and forgotten about. That's over $1,000 a year. She canceled them all in one afternoon. Look at your housing. This is the big one. If you're rattling around in a 4-bedroom house paying property taxes and maintenance on space you don't use, it might be time to think differently. Downsizing isn't giving up, it's freeing up capital. Sell that house, move somewhere smaller, and suddenly you've got a cushion. Or rent out a room. Plenty of women are doing it, creating income and companionship in one move. Income doesn't have to stop at 65. Linda, 70, does bookkeeping for 3 small businesses from her kitchen table. 15 hours a week brings in an extra $800 a month. Joyce, 68, sells her knitted scarves on Etsy. Carol tutors kids online. You have skills, decades of them. Someone will pay for what you know. Now, government benefits. This is not charity. You paid into these systems your whole life. Social Security, if you were married for at least 10 years, you might qualify for spousal benefits even if you're divorced. Many women don't know this and leave money on the table. Call Social Security. Ask questions. Look into SNAP benefits, energy assistance programs, property tax relief for seniors. Every state has different programs. Yes, the paperwork is annoying. Do it anyway. And here's something else nobody tells you. Being financially savvy at 70 makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You're not spending money trying to impress anyone anymore. You know what matters. But I'll be honest with you about something else. Even when you do everything right, even when you budget and plan and hustle, people will still judge you for living alone at your age. They'll call you stubborn, isolated, difficult. They'll have opinions about how you should be living your life. Let's talk about that next. Here's the truth about judgment. Society has very specific ideas about what an older woman living alone should be, and most of those ideas are garbage. You're supposed to be lonely, pitiful even, waiting by the phone for someone to call, grateful for any invitation, a little bit tragic. Or you're the difficult one, the stubborn woman who won't listen to reason, who refuses to move in with family or go to a nice facility where there are people around. Here's what they don't say. That a woman who chooses to live alone at 70 might actually be thriving. That she might have tried living with others and discovered she prefers her own company. That solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Barbara, 69, told me her daughter keeps saying, "Mom, aren't you scared living by yourself?" No. Barbara's scared of losing her morning routine, her quiet coffee on the porch, her ability to eat dinner at 5 or midnight without explaining herself to anyone. The judgment often comes wrapped in concern. Your kids worry. Your friends hint that maybe you should think about your options. Neighbors ask if you're doing okay out here all by yourself, in that tone that suggests you shouldn't be. And yes, some of it comes from genuine care, but a lot of it comes from an outdated script that says older women need to be taken care of, supervised, surrounded. You don't. You've earned the right to live exactly as you choose. If that means alone, own it. When someone calls you independent, like it's a character flaw, say thank you, because it is your character, it's your strength. The real superpower isn't just surviving alone, it's deciding that other people's comfort with your choices matters less than your own. So what does that actually look like in practice? Let me tell you about building the life you actually want. Living authentically after 65 means you finally get to answer the question, what do I actually want? Not what your husband wanted, not what your kids need, not what your mother expected or your friends think is appropriate. What lights you up? Margaret, 73, started painting at 70. Not cute watercolors for the grandkids, bold abstract pieces she sells at local galleries. Her son thinks it's a nice hobby. Margaret thinks it's the first time she's expressed herself honestly in 50 years. This is what living alone gives you. Permission to be weird, to be yourself without an audience that needs you to stay in character. You can become a night owl at 72. You can eat breakfast for dinner every single day. You can turn your dining room into a craft studio or a library, or leave it completely empty because you like the space. You can pursue the degree you abandoned at 20. Learn Italian for no reason except you like how it sounds. Join a hiking group, a book club, a poker night, or join nothing at all and spend your evenings exactly how you want. The women who thrive living alone aren't doing it by accident. They're intentional. They wake up and ask, what would make today meaningful for me? Some volunteer, some garden, some binge-watch crime shows in their pajamas until noon. There's no wrong answer when you're not performing for anyone. And here's what's radical about this. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to make your life impressive or productive or socially acceptable. You just have to make it yours. The freedom to reinvent yourself at 70 is not a consolation prize for living alone. It's the whole point. So here's what I want you to remember about everything we've talked about today. Living alone after 65 isn't a tragedy, it's a choice. And for many of you, it's the best choice you've ever made. Yes, the brutal realities are real. The silence can be heavy. The loneliness hits at 3 a.m. Society will judge you. Your body will remind you it's aging. Money might be tight, but here's what else is real. Your freedom, your peace, your rediscovered self. You've survived everything life threw at you to get here. That's not weakness. That's your superpower. Every morning you wake up and manage your own life, you're proving something important. You don't need rescuing. You need respect. You've traded compromise for authenticity, obligation for choice, other people's expectations for your own truth. This isn't about being alone, it's about being whole, finally completely yourself. So own it. Own every single bit of it, the hard parts and the glorious parts. Because this life you're building, on your own terms, at your own pace, it's yours. And that's everything. Now I want to hear from you. What's your superpower? What have you discovered about yourself living alone? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a community of women who refuse to apologize for choosing themselves.